Hello, welcome back to Paramystic Christina. I'm your host, Christina Bloom. Thank you for joining us again this evening or this today, whenever you're watching this. I know it releases in the morning. I would like to welcome film producer Jill Remensnyder. Hi, Jill. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I know you have like 10 films or something. I looked up on IMDb. You've been a busy girl. You had a lot going on.
That's only a small representation of the work we do.
Okay, so fill us in. What all do you do?
Well, let's see here. So, when I'm not out in the forest working on Bigfoot documentaries, my husband, Brett Eichenberger, and we have a film and video production company, Resonance
Okay.
Productions. So, during the day, we're working with our corporate clients and small businesses and working on commercials, training videos, you name it, we've done it.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
then we carve out time to work on the passion projects, and that can be anything from narrative films, music videos, and where we've really found our passion is in documentary work,
Awesome.
specifically Bigfoot and paranormal.
Okay. You're right up my alley. I mean, the name of the show is Paramystic, for heaven's sakes, right? So that's like right up my alley with that. I love that. What has been like? I know we were talking off scene before we started recording, kind of talking backstage about different projects that you've been working on. And I have to say, if anybody has not seen A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot, and the follow-up, right? A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. Find it, look at it, see it. It's been it was such a wonderful documentary for me because it didn't present Bigfoot as a monster. It presented Bigfoot as a person, whatever that means in Bigfoot world. So I want to tell you I really appreciate that because I'm a huge Bigfoot fan.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. Well, one of the things that we were finding talking to people is that now I'm not ruling out that there are negative
right.
Bigfoot experiences and interactions because just like people, everyone's different. You can't just, put them all in a shoebox, a very
Right.
big shoebox.
A very
Uh,
big shoebox, yes.
but a lot of the experiences we were hearing from people were was of awe, was of
Mhm.
being like a wonder of being just so like their mind opening up to this whole other world that they didn't know existed.
Hmm.
And just there was such a, and hearing people talk about like watching how it walked through a field or how when it looked back at them, making eye contact. These were moments, these beautiful moments. These were moments that changed them in ways that they didn't fully understand at that time.
Right. Right. And I've talked to a few people who've had experiences like that, and they have said, these are people who spend a lot of time in the woods, right? So they're not out there making messes and making a lot of noise. They're just out there in the woods. And they've said that it's different than, say, when a bear has made eye contact with them. Like it's more of a spiritual kind of experience for them. And is that what you've found too, or how has that worked?
Yeah, on some levels, some people have talked about that. I think I can't remember if it was Mark Parker who's featured in our first film, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, or if it was Rich Germeau, who's in both documentaries. But one of them talks very specifically about making eye contact with something that isn't supposed to exist.
Right. I remember that. Yeah, I remember him
And
saying
that
that.
was such a profound statement because in that moment, you talk about paradigm shifting,
Hmm.
where you start to have to question what else is out here that I'm not aware of. And that's just for people who are having the flesh and blood encounter. I mean,
Right.
once let's just jump into the whole paranormal aspect.
Yeah.
Once you start talking to people who are witnessing them, cloak or disappear or like walk behind a small tree and just not come out the other side and whatnot. The people who are experiencing the telepathy, the gifting exchange, then you're getting into more of that spiritual interaction, I
Right.
think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. To me, it just seems like my personal experience with them has not been physical. It has been telepathic. It's been sensory to a great degree. It's been like, what is the, I teach this stuff. You'd think I'd know the word, right? It's like a clairsentience or a claircognizance. And
Mhm.
it's, to me, it's always felt like a protection. Like I grew up out in the woods in northern Wisconsin, and I would go wandering out in the woods by myself. And sometimes it was great, nobody bothered me. It was completely quiet. And other times I would get this feeling like, get home now, go, leave. And I always felt like that was something protecting me from something else that might be there. It always felt like that to me. So I'd have no problem believing that they are, fully sentient, somehow magical because we don't have another word for it maybe. But yeah, it's always been that experience for me is more of a spiritual experience.
Now you mentioned being in the woods a lot as a
Hmm.
child and getting that feeling and needing to get out of the woods. We talk to a lot of people who are hunters who
Hmm.
prior to their sighting, they've experienced that feeling that like something is off. I need to get out of here now.
Yes.
And then you connect that to a sighting, or you talk to other people who upon having a sighting, that message was sent to them, like you need to leave now, get out of here, that being pushed out feeling. So it's really
Right.
it brings up a whole population of people who might be having experiences and interactions, not fully understanding what's going on and that they
Right.
are.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, we can't put them all in the same category because just like people, you have good and bad. You have disinterested and very interested. You have all kinds of every category, just like you do with humans. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. I know that a lot of people I've talked to who have, again, because I grew up in the Northwoods, have had experiences, and they're like, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. Pretty much. Even if they've seen them, they're very much with that. Just don't bother them. Leave them alone. They're not hurting anything. So
Show that respect.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's really interesting and a little bit intimidating for me to be talking to someone who's made these documentaries and talked to so many people with so many experiences because for years I kept that to myself. Like who was I going to tell? You know, I kept
Let
that.
me ask you,
Yeah.
so was it a fear of ridicule, or was it a fear of you didn't want people to think you might be crazy, or just not knowing how
Just
to explain what
yeah.
happened?
Pretty much just not knowing how to explain what happened. I mean, it was an intuitive thing. Okay, well, I'm a psychic. People expect that. But until last year, I think I'd forgotten about a lot of it that happened in my childhood. But until I had that contact that was more feasible,
Hmm.
it was difficult for me to even remember that I'd had those experiences and what they might have meant. I mean, I knew that sometimes I was afraid and sometimes I wasn't, but I didn't know why at that point.
And what
Look,
was
yeah.
that specific interaction that opened you up to
Um,
this again?
yeah, I was at a friend's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we were having a women's retreat weekend at her home. And there was someone there who was really struggling with some deep healing. And all of a sudden, I've got this. I'm a trance channeler too, but I had never trance channeled Bigfoot, which I have done now on a previous episode of Paramystic Christina. But at that point, I had not. And then this beautiful healing came through that was facilitated using my body, but definitely not my language and
Mm.
definitely not my energy. It was it changed this woman's life. It was, I don't even know how else to explain that, but it changed this woman's life. So it was very powerful. And that whole weekend, I was having dreams about contact with Bigfoot, which I'm sure I was just in my sleep. And it just became very real at that point. I think that was last May. And so it's been increasing ever since. Yeah.
Do you think, looking back since last May when this healing took place, are you able to look back to those memories you had in childhood and start seeing other places where maybe they were trying to connect with you, but
Yes.
you may have misunderstood what the message was or who was trying to connect?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I do know that there were times when, not just in my childhood, but throughout my life, when I've been physically in danger, whether it was a car accident or, some other thing, where the car's demolished and I walked away. And those things happen very quickly, of course, when you get into an accident. But just feeling like someone had wrapped their arm around me and picked me right up out of there, you know? So, yeah, and I've always felt like Bigfoot was a guardian for me. Even as a kid, I felt that. Even as a young child, I felt that. Like I'm protected. So, yeah, it
And
was,
specifically by Bigfoot.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah. It's an interesting thing because it's like my personal relationship with the Bigfoot community isn't always reflected in what I hear from other people. You have come the closest to reflecting my personal relationship with the Bigfoot community, which I love.
Was there a specific part? I'm just trying to hone in on who may have resonated with you.
Right. I wish I had looked up her name before we recorded. She's a psychic. Um,
Oh, Tara Harris.
Yes, yes, where she was talking about the mind speak and where she could hear them speaking telepathically. And I
Yes.
have had that too. I have had them speaking with me telepathically. So that is what I really connected into with that because I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not alone in the world. You know, it
What's so
was,
great about Tara and that the whole or her interview and the lead up when we first met her, you couldn't write anything like this. It was perfect. We were filming with Tobe Johnson and Daryl Adams at
okay.
the Owl Moon Lab area where they were having all their interactions. And Daryl was on my case. He was like, "You need to talk to Tara. She's the town psychic. You got to talk to her. Bigfoot gave her like this crystal." And I did the cold call, which I've worked in sales, and I still when I have to just call someone like, "Hi, I'm Jill," blah blah blah, it
Yeah.
still gives me anxiety. And so I called her and I was like, "I'm hanging out with Daryl Adams, and he says I really need to meet you." So, and it's dark; it's probably like 9 o'clock at night. She meets us at the city park, and
Okay.
we sit down at a picnic table, and there's like street light kind of nearby on the park, and she's like, "I'm just gonna lay it all out there. I know this is going to sound crazy." And basically, I mean, she's a psychic medium. She does clearing. She goes up into the woods and does her work
Mhm.
with her partner. And she's like, "Look, I never thought about Bigfoot. I didn't give a rip about it. I deal with ghosts. I work with spirits, ghosts,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, doing cleanup." And then one day they were during a clearing, they just happened to look over. And not that far away, I think she said it's like 20 feet maybe, there was a Bigfoot standing there. And they looked at it, looked at each other, looked back, and it was gone. And her whole explanation, the way she summed it up, was, "Well, crap, they exist." So now this is part of her wheelhouse that she has to like make room for too.
Right.
But but yeah, she brought the crystal foot, which we feature in the documentary,
Hmm.
that he gifted her, and just kind of out of nowhere, it just like appeared in front of her on the ground. Um, but man, where do I even start? That was a trip. that whole interview was a trip. So what we don't
Yeah.
get into in the documentary is when Mike and Brett were setting up the cameras and lighting and whatnot in the middle of that old logging road. I'm out with her and her friend doing a clearing up up the mountain a bit. And that's when she, well, that's, we'll circle back to that. That's when
Okay.
she's kind of like, you're one of us. And
Yes.
then we started playing the telepathy game of where I was seeing, like, I was seeing what they were seeing
Hmm.
type. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
describe. You know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So while we're getting set, well, we're doing that, they're getting set up. Mike and Brett are having, they're hearing wood knocks, they're hearing weird noises and stuff. They were getting a little, I wouldn't say unhinged, but they were getting a little uncomfortable, like, okay, we're not alone.
Hmm.
And then when Tara came back for the interview, it's just, you could feel the energy in the air. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, we were getting howls off the back hill. Uh, she was talking about communication with spirit and talking about how, when spirit comes in, it's like a little pop, there's a little flash of light. Brett was capturing micro ball lightning
Oh,
on,
wow.
on film that he shows in the sequel. He zoomed in
Mhm.
on it and whatnot. But we had some other weird stuff. Like as soon as we cut cameras at the end of the interview, just a stone's throw away in the woods, we hear what sounds like a baby crying. And
Wow.
of course, like all the women turn are like, oh no, we must go help. And then we all kind of stopped and we're like, no, no, we are
No,
not
we know that
going.
there's not a baby there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're
Yeah.
not going to be let off into the woods, but when everyone heard it, and
Mhm.
there's that change in the air, you can just feel it. And I think
Yes.
anyone, and whether it's like a Bigfoot, a cryptid sighting, crop circles, UFOs, and especially like in paranormal investigations, people talk about just that feeling in the air, the
Mhm.
electromagnetic changes, with the
Yes.
battery, like electronics giving out, batteries dying. It just feels like you're in a vacuum. We
Right.
had all of that during Tara's interview.
I am not surprised. Because because I understand the energy, I'm not surprised. But she did a great interview. I was very impressed with her interview. Yeah,
We're,
she
we're finally we've coaxed her out to do readings.
okay.
And so she does fantastic readings. And so we set up like a whole email for her so she wouldn't have to give out her personal stuff. So
Right.
that, and I was like, half my day after her interview came out, I was like her personal assistant. All these people were like, this is going on in my life, and I really need to talk to Tara about it. And I need to book a read. And I'm just like, I have to do my work too. So,
Uh,
but I'm glad that she's finally, this has kind of helped push her to get
good.
back into working with people.
Good. Good. Yeah, because she seems like she's very good at it. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love to watch people thrive with what they love. Absolutely. And you certainly seem to be thriving with what you love. So that's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I distinctly remember, I want to say it was in 2009, 2010 maybe. It was a long time ago. Brett and I were in the car and we are like, I just watched one of these haunted shows, like paranormal type shows on TV. And I remember telling Brett how awesome it would be. Like, wouldn't it be so cool if someday we can like make shows about paranormal stuff or about Bigfoot or about UFOs? And that just seemed so out of reach and so like, where do you even begin to do
Hmm.
that? And I guess we planted the seed back then,
Yes.
but
Yes.
when it all came full circle. Yeah.
I love that. When did A Flash of Beauty, the first one, come out?
It came out Memorial Day weekend of 2022.
Okay. So it's only been a few years.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Did you want to talk about anything that you're working on now? I know you can't give a lot of details ahead of time, but is there anything you'd like to share about? about those, what you
Yeah.
got going on now? I'm because
Yeah,
now
so
I'm like,
tell me more. Yeah,
Yeah.
so after A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed came out, Ron Moorhead approached us and he wanted us to tell his story.
Okay.
And not just, Ron, a lot of people are familiar with Ron Moorhead's story with the Sierra Sounds, his
Hmm.
book Voices in the Wilderness, The Quantum
Yes.
Bigfoot. But he really wanted it told properly.
Okay.
And how do you say no to a legend?
Right,
Ron.
exactly.
So we're like, absolutely, count us in. So
Yeah.
at the end of 2022, we slowly started working on it. And we've you work when you can in
Hmm.
in the indie filmmaking.
Right.
So we've been working on that, and it's been an incredible journey because one of the challenges has been because so many people know Ron's story and they think they know the whole story about the Sierra Sounds, but there's a lot more to it.
Okay.
And so we've been able to sit down with members of the original hunting party who've never gone on camera until now.
Wow.
Yep. And there's a few more surprises in store
Awesome.
there's still a few interviews that we need to get that we're working on. We've had some
Okay.
scheduling conflicts, but it's coming together and fingers crossed, knock on wood, light a candle that it's all done this fall.
Wow, that I can't wait for that one. That is so exciting.
We're
That
super
is
excited about that. Yeah.
that is
And
so exciting.
And then the other one currently, we are working on A Flash of Beauty 3, which
Okay.
focuses solely on the indigenous, the oral traditions, the oral history of Sasquatch, the cultural perspectives and their experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait for that one too. So, wow, you have some great stuff going on. I'm asking my next question as a paranormal investigator and as someone who has been watching a lot of people who do paranormal investigations, energy healing, psychic readings, getting really sick because they're not protecting their energy.
Mm.
When you're out there and you're filming and you're working with these otherworldly kind of energies or these beyond human energies, do you have some sort of a system that you use to kind of protect your own energy from getting like sucked away or taking on something? Or do you have a system like that at all for your
Well,
crew?
I mean, we don't have it's not in our handbook of
Okay.
uh of protocols, but
Okay.
I usually carry with me it's just off camera. I have like a little like a travel pack of
Okay.
like sage and you know, crystals. I bring actually lately I've been bringing one of the elders we interviewed
Oh,
for the
wow.
Flash B3 gave me some of his abalone shell
Yeah,
for protection. He said
that
it was
is
very
wonderful.
powerful medicine. And there's sometimes like I'll be leaving and I just feel inclined like this needs to come with me today. So, but you know how that is, how sometimes
Yes.
it's like, I need to bring this crystal with me just to have something to hold on to. But I mean, as far as like a protocol or what we
Hmm.
do, luckily we're a three-person team. So
Okay.
we're pretty good at managing kind of where we are
Right.
mentally and emotionally when we go into situations. And I mean, we brief, before we go into a situation.
Hmm.
If there has been like negative stuff attached to a property or an account or an experiencer, we talk about that, and it's kind of that whole put yourself in your little protective bubble and
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
And it's mostly, I think, more afterwards.
Hmm.
There's kind of that, leaving the old energy behind and kind of
Right.
detoxing,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah. That is one of the things that I speak about when I speak at Paracons is, taking care of your personal energy because very often we get so involved in what we're doing that we don't stop and think about what we're leaving behind, what might be coming home with us until we get there and there's problems,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, I felt inclined to ask that because you do work with otherworldly energies.
And that is a great question. It's
Yeah.
something I need to be more aware of because we have had some interesting, that's my catchphrase for all the stuff that's weird or what the heck,
Yeah,
some interesting
exactly.
things have happened where we have had things follow us home and it involves having to, clean,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Cleansing with
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even just with sage, but it's with intention as well, where you have to go, okay, you don't belong here. This is my home.
Hmm.
And you need to go back to where you came from or off to the light or whatever, but you cannot stay here with us. Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily in this house, we get a lot of I call it pedestrians.
Yes.
There's a lot of kind of pedestrian spiritual traffic coming through, and it's mostly just just passing through, and it's like okay, carry on. But every so often, there'll be a shadow that's out of place or some movement that
Yeah.
you shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I have discovered throughout my 25 years of doing this that sometimes when you have a home that has traffic like that, where they're just passing through, very often that home was built where there used to be a walking path, where a lot of people trekked on that path, whether it was indigenous or trappers or whatever over the years walking on, and they're still doing it. Like they just, okay, well, we don't care that you put a house there, we just keep going. And so yeah, I've run into
That's
that
a
more than a
great
few
point.
times. Yeah.
That's a great point. And I actually haven't gone back through Google Earth where you
Hmm.
can peel back the layers.
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't done that to look at this property, but our previous home of 15 years, we had a lot of interesting, kind of
Okay.
nerve-wracking stuff happening on a
Okay.
pretty regular basis. And one day, just out of curiosity, we were going through Google Earth, going back through the years, like, oh, look, you parked outside, haha, and oh, look, that's before we did this landscaping. Oh, here's the house being built. And then we get to, oh, this was farmland, and our house is built where the backside of the barn had a shed.
Mm.
Don't know
Yeah.
what went on in the shed, but it
Yeah.
was making itself known, very much so. So
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. That is a word. Interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't just throughout the years, I have run into that several times where a home was just built where there had been traffic. And so there's still traffic. And, I'm of the opinion that every square inch of this planet has had something die on it, right? So there's potential for the whole world to be haunted. So it's not just one place or another. It's not just that jail or that asylum. It's potential everywhere.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
when you're doing investigations,
Hmm.
how much pre-production, so to speak, are you doing with the research on these locations?
As a psychic, I don't do any. I
Okay.
do the research afterwards.
Okay. Oh, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
Hmm.
I was thinking more in terms of like just paranormal investigating. But
Right.
no, that's completely
Yeah.
valid.
I
Yes.
like to go in cold. I like to
Yes.
go in with no information. I worked with a paranormal group years ago where the psychics were actually driven to the location blindfolded. So we wouldn't have
Ooh,
any clue about what we were going into. And that's where I learned to protect before going in because you literally have no idea where you are, what you're doing. And sometimes they would even walk us like into the building before we took off our blindfolds. And that was voluntary. I signed up for that. But yeah, it made me really good at feeling out energies for sure.
I would imagine so, being
Yeah.
blindfolded and being brought into a location. Because, when you have your senses fully, like your eyes and everything,
Hmm.
and you can kind of take in and start feeding off that energy and stuff,
Right.
but just having to go in
Literally
blind.
blind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like to go into investigations with no previous information. And with the group that I'm currently working with, we have a bunch of people who love to research the history. And I'm like, great, research it. Don't tell me anything until afterwards.
Perfect.
So yeah, I prefer to do it that way. To me, it feels more legitimate, I think, than going in with a preconceived notion of this is what happened. Which is why I have not gone to places like the Gettysburg battlefield, right? That's everywhere. Like you can read that history anywhere, right? So,
Right.
and plus, I'm very visual and I don't want to watch that play out in front of me.
Oh, yeah. Very good point.
Yeah. So it's just interesting how we all work a little bit differently because I know you're psychic too. That's not really where you put your focus, I don't think, but that's where, you are psychic. So you do pick up on a lot of things before you ever get there.
It's it's interesting because I try to keep everything in its own little silo. Like right now we're working on Bigfoot,
Uh-huh.
but it bleeds over. You
It
just can't
does.
you can't turn it off or not
Hmm.
very effectively because
It's always
it's
there.
always kind of running.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I actually after A Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot came out, I was convinced, I was like, okay, now I'm going to shift gears away. We did our two documentaries. I'm going to
Hmm.
shift gears and really focus on spiritual work and dive in, and I'm going to run with it.
Right.
Well, the universe said, you've got more documentaries to make.
Right.
So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I love that that's where you're being taken. And I love that that's the work that you and Brett are doing. And I just think it's beautiful. I just think
thank
it's
you.
beautiful. I love that, there's so much out there about these monsters in the woods. And I'm like, not been my experience at all.
And for the most part, that's,
Yeah.
again, I mean, we
Yeah.
do get some reports that
Oh, I'm
just
sure.
and we have to have discussions like how do we like this is an important story and
Mm-hmm.
this person needs to be heard.
Yes.
How can we do this in a responsible way?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have there, yeah, we get a lot of reports where it's just kind of like handle with care. How are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you're also dealing with there is a PTSD element for a lot of people. And
Right.
that's why in the first documentary we brought in a psychiatrist to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the impact having a sighting can have on a person.
Right. I know some UFO documentaries have done that too, where they've brought in a psychiatrist to talk about the impact of having a UFO experience or an abduction experience. So, uh, I'm curious to know if you're going to be called to be doing any of those, and I know that you haven't got that information yet, so you can't answer the question, but
We get we get a lot of calls, but it's indie filmmaking.
hmm.
So I'm still buying Powerball tickets.
Yep.
If you catch my drift. So
I
I
sure
mean,
do.
it's an
Yes.
art.
Yeah.
It's an art. So
Yeah. You're not alone in that either. So,
yeah.
I, I'm out there, I'm doing these shows and all that, but yeah, it's this independent stuff it gets pricey.
But
So
it's a passion. I mean,
it is.
I can't imagine being anywhere else right now. So this has been, every interview we do, every person who shares their
Hmm.
story, and there's no such thing as a short Bigfoot encounter.
No,
I mean, at minimum, when I'm on the phone with people, it's at the shortest is around an hour.
I can
On
believe that.
average, it's over 2 hours.
I can believe that.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we've had people contact us with fantastic stories about their UFO sighting or abduction. also last year, a lot of people were reaching out about dogman
Uh,
encounters and sightings. And it's just a matter of, we want to do it all, but you can only eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Right,
So.
exactly. Exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot. Would you like to share any contact information or anything like that? Or you got your plate full?
Oh, no, I mean,
Yeah.
the best way, we're not hard people to find.
Mhm.
Uh, we have the most generic website ever. It's www.bigfootdoc.com.
Okay.
And that's just kind of it. Basically, it exists to direct people to our email, which is info@bigfootdoc.com.
.com?
So
Okay.
that's a good way to get a hold of us. It goes directly to me and to Brett, the director.
Hmm.
Also, we're on Facebook. We're pretty easy to find on the Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed page, or
Awesome.
Jill and Brett
Jill and
kind of
Brett.
floating around in the in the Facebook universe.
Yes.
Yeah, and we also have a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
which has both of our documentaries. But what we've also done, which is completely unheard of, we've released the full interviews of everyone, almost everyone we've sat down with, just to
Okay.
give full context, because we'll interview someone for an hour or two, and we're only using maybe a minute or 2 minute soundbite from them. And there's so many great stories and
Yeah.
information that needs to
Right.
be shared. So we just felt like we were cheating the audience if we didn't put that out there.
That's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. That's great. A lot of filmmakers I don't think do that. I think they hold a lot back, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But we're trying to be transparent.
right.
So,
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time and being here. I so appreciate you. Um, I, I was texting Deidre right before this and going, I'm so nervous.
oh
You
no, no,
know,
no.
that's what she said. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So, but I do thank you. I know that you have a busy schedule, and I really appreciate your being willing to take some time out to talk to me.
Well, thank you for having me. I love to talk.
I love it. We are going to connect at some point someday. I know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
We have things to talk about.
We sure do. We sure do. All right. Thank you so much, Jill. And thank you, everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Paramystic Christina, and I'll catch you next time.